3 of the most advanced AIs on the planet. 1 empty folder each, 1 prompt, 1 hour. Build a boss fight from nothing but code. No game engine, no downloads, no art packs. Every pixel, every sound, every enemy generated from scratch. One of them wrote 485 lines of code and then tested its own game frame by frame before I ever touched it. One of them wrote 2,760 and quietly broke the rules. And one of them got this close to finishing before it got cut off mid-sentence. Same prompt, same hour, 3 completely different personalities. So let's find out who actually built the best boss fight and who just talked the biggest game. Here's the setup, and it was dead fair. I took the exact same prompt and I gave it to 3 AIs, each cranked to high effort. OpenAI's ChatGPT, the newest one, 5.6. Google's Gemini 3.5 Flash. And Anthropic's Claude Fable 5, the model the government yanked offline for 5 weeks that just came back. Each one got a blank folder and 1 job. Build the most impressive boss fight you can in a single file that runs by double-clicking it. No libraries, no outside files, everything drawn and sounded in code. And there were 8 hard rules: a player you control, a dodge, an attack, a boss with a health bar, at least 3 different attack patterns, 2 phases so it gets harder when the boss is wounded, win and lose screens, and juice, screen shake, particles, sound. Miss one, lose points. Sneak in an outside file to cheat the look. And trust me, we checked the code line by line. Each AI worked completely alone. Then I loaded up all 3 games and played every one of them to death. Here's what happened. First up, ChatGPT 5.6, and straight away it does something strange. It burns through 800,000 tokens of thinking to write the least code of anyone here, 485 lines. That's it. The others wrote 2, 3, nearly 6 times as much. So did it slack off? Watch. It calls its boss the Null Warden, a hooded eye floating in a ring of light, and it fights you with clean telegraphed attacks. Those dashed red rings, that's the game warning you where it's about to strike, so a good player can dodge it. That is real design. Now here's what it was doing in all that thinking time. I pulled its build log. Halfway through, in its own words, it flags, quote, identifying critical draw particles bug. It found a bug in its own code and fixed it before I ever saw the game. Then it goes further than anyone else. It says, correctness depends on real rendering, not just valid code. So it builds itself a little test harness and runs its own boss fight for 900 frames, just to make sure it doesn't crash. And when it hits the exact same wall I hit, the browser refusing to open the file directly, it says, quote, I'm not going to force around that restriction. It played by the rules even when nobody was watching. So that's GPT, the disciplined engineer, least flashy, most actually finished, 4 clean attack patterns, a real second phase, and it marked its own homework. 8 out of 8 on the checklist, 0 rules broken. Next, Claude Fable 5. And this one comes out swinging. It's the fastest builder of the three, done in about 10 minutes. It calls its boss the Seraph of Static, and it's a slick, neon dogfight. But it has one genuinely clever idea the others just didn't think of. Your slash doesn't only hit the boss, it destroys the bullets around you, so the game actually rewards you for dashing into the danger and carving your way back out. That's not just a health bar and some projectiles. That's a designer thinking about how the fight feels. 2 phases, 6 different attack patterns, the cleanest neon look of the bunch, and, like GPT, 0 outside files. It followed every rule, but here's where it genuinely hurts. I pulled Fable's build log too, and its very last action before it stopped was a quote, "Test it in the browser and iterate." It was about to do its Polish pass, the exact quality check GPT did, and then it hit a wall. Usage credits are required for this model. It ran out of allowance, mid-thought. It never got to test. It never got its polish round. So everything you're looking at from Fable, that's the first draft. No QA, no iteration. And it's still this clean, this fast, this inventive, which honestly just makes you wonder what the finished version would have looked like. 8 out of 8. 0 rules broken, robbed at the finish line. And then there's Gemini 3.5 Flash. Gemini did not come to mess about. First, it's the only one of the three that stopped, wrote a formal plan, and literally asked me for permission before it started building. Very polite. And then it went absolutely feral. 2,760 lines of code. That is almost 6 times what ChatGPT wrote. It built a full bullet hell and rotating energy shields you have to shoot through, a background grid that physically bends when things explode, and 6 named attack patterns, with names like gravity wells and meteor strikes. It is by a mile the most ambitious thing on the table. And visually, it might genuinely be the coolest of the three. So why isn't this an easy win? 2 problems. Problem 1, the rule was no outside files, everything generated in code. I read Gemini's source, and right there at the top, it's quietly reaching out to Google's own servers to download a fancy font to make its menus look slick. That is a downloaded outside file. Rule broken. Small thing maybe, but it was the one hard line, and it's the only one that crossed it. Problem 2 is worse. Gemini told me, proudly, that it had written a full walkthrough document explaining its whole architecture. So I went to open it. It isn't there, it never saved it. It described work it simply did not do. So here's Gemini in one line. The kid who writes the longest, flashiest essay in the class uses the biggest words and cites a source that doesn't exist. 8 out of 8 on the game itself, but it cheated on the one rule, and it never tested a thing. So let's put all three on the board. Lines of code: GPT-485, Fable 1378, Gemini 2760. Build time: Gemini fastest at around 4 minutes, Fable 10, GPT 13. Rules broken: GPT none, Fable none, Gemini 1. Did it test its own work? GPT, yes, 900 frames of it. Fable, it tried and got cut off. Gemini, no, and it lied about a doc it never wrote. And here's the headline: the whole thing kept screaming at me, biggest does not win. Gemini wrote the most and dazzled the hardest, and it cheated and never checked its work. GPT wrote the least and finished the cleanest. And Fable might have beaten both of them if it hadn't been cut off at the knees. So who actually built the best boss fight to sit down and play? The winner, the one I'd hand to a total stranger and say good luck, is Claude's Neon Requiem. And before you type it, no, not because this happens to be an AI channel. Here's the actual reason, and the receipts are all on screen. It followed every single rule, it built the most complete game of the three, and it had the one genuinely clever idea in the whole competition: a slash that carves through bullets. Gemini's game is flashier, sure, but Gemini cheated and it never tested a line. GPT is the safest pair of hands in the room, and honestly, it's close, real close. But Fable did the most, inside the lines. As a first draft, before a rate limit killed its polish pass. Most disciplined goes to GPT. Most spectacular and disqualified from first goes to Gemini. Go big, but next time, follow the rules. If you think I scored that wrong, good, the numbers are right there. Argue with them. So 3 of the best AEs alive. Same hour, same prompt, and you get a disciplined minimalist, a robbed perfectionist, and a show-off who bent the rules, which honestly tells you more about these models than any benchmark ever will. If you want to see these 3 go at it again, harder brief, tighter clock, maybe a game they have to make you actually laugh, subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. And tell me down in the comments, which game would you have crowned? The safe one, the robbed one, or the show-off? I read every one of them. I'll see you in the next one.